The city was always a different beast after dark, and I, Amy, was a creature of its shadows. I was 24, floating through life with a quiet hum, and the pulsing heart of a nightclub was my strange sanctuary. Not for the endless chit-chat or the forced smiles, no. I came for the sheer, magnificent anonymity of it all. To lose myself in the bass that vibrated through the floorboards, up my legs, and settled in my chest like a second heartbeat. To let the kaleidoscope of lights, ruby reds, electric blues, emerald greens, paint the smoke-filled air around me, blurring the edges of everything, including myself. It was an escape, a sensory overload that somehow quieted the incessant chatter in my own head. Most nights, I'd find a spot on the fringes, nursing a drink, just watching. The air tasted of expensive perfume, stale beer, and the metallic tang of distant tequila. Bodies moved in a single, sweaty organism on the dance floor, a beautiful chaos I observed from a safe distance. I liked the hum of it, the feeling of being part of something vast without having to truly engage. It was my ritual, a quiet yearning I couldn't quite name, always simmering beneath the surface, finding a temporary lull in the rhythmic assault of sound. Then she appeared. My gaze, usually sweeping and detached, snagged on her across the crowded room, and it was like someone had suddenly cranked up the volume on life itself. She was a woman, maybe my age, maybe a little older, with hair the color of midnight, falling in loose waves around a face that demanded attention. Not in an aggressive way, but with a quiet, undeniable power. Her eyes, I couldn't quite discern the color in the dim light, but they held a captivating glint, like a secret just waiting to be told. When she smiled, slowly, deliberately, it seemed to draw the ambient light, making everything else around her a little dimmer. She moved with an effortless confidence that was almost a physical force, gliding through the throngs on the dance floor as if they parted for her. I felt a jolt, right in my chest, an unexpected current of curiosity I'd never experienced before. It wasn't just physical, it was something else. A challenge, perhaps? A recognition? My usual detachment dissolved, leaving me feeling exposed and hyper-aware. My eyes, which usually drifted, were now fixed, almost against my will. She was a stark contrast to my own reserved nature, a vibrant, unashamed flame in a room full of flickering candles. As if sensing the weight of my gaze, she slowly turned her head, her movements fluid and unhurried. Her eyes, now I saw them. Deep, dark pools that seemed to hold both mischief and profound understanding, locked onto mine across the swirling mass of bodies. The noise of the club, the thrum of the bass, it all seemed to fade, replaced by a sudden, deafening silence in my ears. It was a silent, charged moment, stretched impossibly thin between us. A strange heat bloomed under my skin, and my breath hitched, a small, involuntary gasp. A slow smile spread across her lips, the kind that hinted at a delicious secret. Then, she offered a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. It was a silent invitation, a quiet challenge, hanging in the air like the scent of jasmine and possibility. My mind raced, tumbling over itself. What was that? Who was she? I'd never felt a pull like this, an almost visceral urge to understand, to know another person. It was unsettling, exhilarating, and completely, utterly new. The quiet hum in my chest had been replaced by a frantic drum solo, and I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that my nights in the shadows were about to change. The days that followed blurred into a restless anticipation. My usual routines felt dull, muted. The quiet hum in my chest had been replaced by a persistent thrum, a low-frequency hum that resonated with one thought. Her. Debra. The name, which I'd only learned from overhearing a bartender call it out, now echoed in my mind, a sweet, unfamiliar melody. I found myself back at the same club, 2 nights later, then again. It was an involuntary pilgrimage. My body moved there before my mind could even form a coherent argument against it. I told myself it was for the music, for the escape, but deep down I knew I was searching, and she was always there, Or, more accurately, she always seemed to appear. Not immediately, but after an hour or so, a presence would announce itself, a subtle shift in the energy of the room. My head would turn, instinctively, and there she'd be, lounging against the bar, or laughing with a small group of friends, her gaze eventually finding mine, as if drawn by an invisible thread. The flirting started subtly, a slow, alluring dance of attraction that left me breathless. It was in the shared glances over a drink, her eyes holding mine a fraction of a second too long, a silent question passing between us. It was in the casual brush of her hand against mine as she navigated the crowded space, a touch so fleeting yet so deliberate, it left a trail of fire on my skin. One night, I was ordering a drink, and she sidled up beside me, her arm brushing mine. "Long night?" she murmured, her voice a low, husky register that cut through the club's din, meant only for me. I felt a flush creep up my neck. My internal world, once so neatly ordered, was now in disarray. I'd always considered myself straight, or at least I'd never given it much thought. Relationships, dating, they'd always felt like something other people did. But Debra, her charm was undeniable, her attention intoxicating. Every lingering glance, every soft, almost imperceptible smile directed solely at me, chipped away at the carefully constructed walls around my heart. I found myself questioning my own boundaries, my own desires, feeling a pull towards something new, exhilarating, and terrifying. One evening, I was leaning against a pillar, watching the kaleidoscope of lights dance across the floor, lost in thought. Debra approached me slowly, her stride confident and unhurried. She stopped just inches away, her scent, a sophisticated blend of jasmine and something subtly spicy, enveloping me. The proximity was startling, overwhelming. "Lost in thought, Amy," she murmured, her voice a warm whisper near my ear. The sound sent a shiver down my spine, a delicious ripple that had nothing to do with the cool air conditioning. She hadn't asked my name before, not directly. The casual use of it, the intimacy of it, felt like a secret shared between us. I turned my head, our faces now so close I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Her eyes, those deep, dark pools, held a suggestive depth, a challenge. Just observing, I managed, my voice a little rougher than I intended. She chuckled, a low, throaty sound that vibrated through me. Some things are meant to be experienced, not just observed. Her gaze dropped to my lips, lingering there for a moment before flicking back to my eyes. The air between us crackled, thick with unspoken desire, a tension so palpable it felt like a third presence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I could feel the flush spread across my face, heat blooming under my skin. This was new, this raw, unfiltered longing. Every fiber of my being screamed both caution and an overwhelming urge to lean in, to close the minuscule gap between us. The dance had begun, and I, the perpetual observer, found myself irrevocably drawn into its intoxicating rhythm. The following weeks became a blur of elevated senses and heightened anticipation. Debra's presence became a gravitational force, pulling me deeper into her orbit with each encounter. The subtle flirtations of before escalated, growing bolder, more direct, yet always with that tantalizing hint of restraint that made them all the more potent. Her touch lingered, her eyes held an even more provocative depth, and her proximity became a constant, thrilling challenge I found myself increasingly unwilling and unable to resist. One particularly vibrant night, the club was a pulsating entity, more alive than usual. The music was a deep, driving rhythm that seeped into your bones and begged for release. I was, as usual, on the periphery, watching. Debra appeared beside me, her smile a slow, captivating curve. "Come on, Amy," she murmured, her hand gently taking mine. Her touch was warm, firm, and sent an immediate jolt through my arm. "Don't just watch. Feel it." Before I could articulate a protest, or even form a coherent thought, she pulled me, gently but decisively, onto the dance floor. The sudden immersion into the heart of the crowd was disorienting, exhilarating. Bodies pressed in around us, the air thick with sweat and perfume and raw energy. But then it was just her. Our bodies moved, at first hesitantly on my part, then in sync with hers, to the hypnotic rhythm of the music. We were close, almost touching, the heat radiating from her skin a palpable thing. Her eyes never left mine, a silent conversation passing between us that needed no words. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, joyous drum mirroring the beat of the club. As the music swelled, a powerful crescendo washing over us, Debra's hand drifted from mine, finding the small of my back. It was a light, possessive touch, sending a wave of electric sensation through me. Her fingers splayed gently, pressing me subtly closer, until our hips brushed, then swayed in a fluid, intimate rhythm. My internal world was in utter chaos. Every rational thought, every preconceived notion of who I was, shattered and reformed around her. The bending process was no longer subtle, it was a profound, undeniable shift. I was undeniably attracted, consumed by her, the entire world narrowing to just Debra, her scent, her touch, the electricity sparking between us. A fear of the unknown battled fiercely with an overwhelming, intoxicating curiosity. The music reached its peak, a driving, insistent beat that seemed to demand release. Debra's gaze intensified, her eyes burning into mine with an unspoken question, a silent demand. Her hand on my back tightened imperceptibly, drawing me even closer until our chests were almost touching. And then she turned, slowly, deliberately, her body pivoting, bringing us face to face, our breaths mingling in the humid air. Without a word, without breaking eye contact, she lifted her free hand, her fingers gently cupping my jaw. Her thumb, surprisingly soft, caressed my cheek, sending shivers down my spine. The world outside us ceased to exist. All that remained was the frantic beat of my heart, the warm pressure of her hand, and the hypnotic depth of her gaze. Then slowly, deliberately, she closed the distance. Her lips, soft and surprisingly yielding, met mine. It was tentative at first, a whisper of a kiss, a question. Then, as if sensing my hesitant surrender, it deepened. A rush of sensation, a dizzying blend of sweetness and raw hunger, swept through me, stealing my breath. It was a revelation, an explosion of feeling that rocked me to my core. The taste of her, the subtle scent of her skin, the surprising softness of her lips, it all lodged itself deep within my memory. I pulled away, not in rejection, but in overwhelming surprise, a gasp catching in my throat. My head spun, my body thrummed with a vibrant, unfamiliar energy. My lips still tingled with the ghost of her touch. I stared at her, breathless, stunned, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. In that single, untamed kiss, everything had changed. And in that moment, in the pulsating heart of the nightclub, I knew with a sudden, undeniable clarity that my desire for Debra was real, consuming, and irrevocably true. The aftermath of that kiss left me reeling. It wasn't just a physical sensation. It was an earthquake in my carefully constructed world. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat, to process this profound shift alone. So I did. I pulled away, not just from Debra in that moment, but from the club, from the very idea of facing her. I became a ghost in my own life, wrestling with the implications of an attraction so potent it had shattered my understanding of myself. I avoided the club. I avoided my usual haunts, fearing I might run into her. My phone, a constant companion, felt like a ticking time bomb, every notification a potential message from her. But none came, not for days. And in that silence, a strange ache began to bloom in my chest, a hollowness where her presence should have been. Debra, however, possessed a quiet persistence. She understood my retreat, not as rejection, but as a space I needed to navigate. Her pursuit was gentle, never aggressive, demonstrating a quiet understanding of my hesitations. A week after the kiss, A single text appeared on my phone screen. Thinking of you. No pressure, just thought you should know. Simple, understated, yet it resonated deeply. It wasn't a demand, but an invitation, a soft echo of her presence. Weeks later, after I'd begun to tentatively venture out again, I saw her. Not at the club, but in a quiet, sun-drenched cafe, the kind of place I frequented for work or solace. Our eyes met, and a silent, knowing understanding passed between us. There was no awkwardness, no forced smiles. Just a gentle, almost tender recognition. She offered a small, soft smile and gestured to the empty chair opposite her. I walked over, my heart a frantic bird, and sat down. "Hey," she said, her voice softer here, away from the pulsating bass and flashing lights. It held a new layer, a warmth that was both comforting and disarming. "Hey," I replied, my voice a little rough.
We talked then.
Really talked. Not about the kiss, not directly, but about everything around it. She spoke of her work, her passions, her own quiet moments of reflection. And I, surprisingly, found myself opening up, slowly, revealing the guarded nature I usually kept hidden. I spoke of my past, not in great detail, but enough to hint at the experiences that had made me so cautious, so observational. She listened intently, her gaze unwavering, offering a comforting presence that felt like a soft blanket on a cold night. Away from the club's intensity, I began to see glimpses of Debra beyond her confident facade. There was a quiet thoughtfulness, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes when she spoke of her dreams. She was more than just the magnetic siren on the dance floor. She was complex, layered, and utterly captivating. We sat there for hours, the clatter of coffee cups and the murmur of conversations fading into the background. There was a moment of shared quiet, a comfortable silence that felt heavier, more profound than any conversation. In that stillness, I felt a different kind of pull, not just physical, though that still simmered, but emotional. A deep sense of connection, a warmth spreading through me that felt both new and strangely familiar. Debra reached across the table, her hand gently covering mine. Her touch was tender, reassuring, a silent promise. She didn't squeeze, didn't make a grand gesture, just let her warmth seep into my skin. It spoke volumes, an unspoken assurance that she saw me, understood me, and wasn't going anywhere. In that moment, a profound realization dawned on me. This wasn't just about a kiss or a fleeting attraction. This was about something real, something deep, something that had the potential to mend the quiet ache I hadn't even realized I was carrying. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a tremor of hope, a fragile, beautiful thing blossoming in the once barren landscape of my heart. Just as our connection began to deepen, a shadow from the past crept in, chilling the fragile warmth we were building. It was a Tuesday evening, a week after our cafe rendezvous, and I was actually smiling on my walk to meet Debra for dinner, a new, exhilarating sensation. But then it happened. I was cutting through a small, dimly lit art gallery, a shortcut I sometimes took, admiring a particularly stark sculpture, when I overheard a snippet of conversation. Two women, dressed in what looked like expensive, tailored suits, were standing near a canvas splashed with aggressive reds and blacks. "Debra, always so charming, isn't she?" one woman murmured, her voice dripping with an almost imperceptible hint of sarcasm. The other chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. "Oh, absolutely. The queen of the fleeting conquest. I hear she's currently captivating some quiet little thing who looks like she's never seen a nightclub before." There was a dismissive laugh, then a comment about another notch on the belt. The words hit me like a physical blow. The air rushed out of my lungs, and the vibrant colors of the artwork blurred into an ugly smear. Fleeting conquest. Another notch on the belt. The phrases echoed in my mind, cold and sharp. My old insecurities, the ones I thought I'd buried deep, clawed their way to the surface with a vengeance. The newness of my feelings, so fragile and beautiful, felt suddenly tainted, cheapened. This perceived challenge, this whisper of a reputation, rattled me to my core. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and fled the gallery, the elegant sculptures suddenly menacing, the hushed whispers feeling like a public condemnation. My carefully nurtured hope withered, replaced by a bitter cocktail of hurt and confusion. All the doubts I'd suppressed, all the fears of being naive or foolish, roared to life. Was I just another game? Another quiet thing to be bent and then discarded? I couldn't face Debra. Not then, not with those words ringing in my ears. I sent a terse text. Can't make it. Something came up. It was cowardly, I knew, but my pride, bruised and bleeding, wouldn't allow me to be vulnerable. I needed to retreat, to pull back into my shell before I was irrevocably shattered. Debra, I knew, must have been hurt. A single text from her came hours later, concise and carrying a faint edge of bewilderment. Everything okay?
Call me if you need anything.
I didn't reply. My mind was a battleground, a brutal fight between the undeniable longing for her and the paralyzing fear of being used, of being wrong about this profound, life-altering connection. Beyond the immediate sting, a deeper anxiety gnawed at me. This relationship, this connection with a woman, was already a step into the unknown. I was grappling with what it meant for my identity, my future, how society might view it. The fear of judgment, the uncharted territory of a same-sex relationship, added another heavy layer to my internal turmoil. Was I making a mistake? Was this all just a fleeting fantasy I'd conjured? I missed her acutely, the ache a constant, dull throb in my chest, a brutal reminder of what I might be losing. But the words, Queen of the Fleeting Conquest, played on an endless loop, painting her in a light that felt cold and manipulative. Could I trust her? Could I trust myself with her? Could I trust myself, period? I questioned if I was strong enough for this, for Debra, for this exhilarating, terrifying new version of myself that she had awakened. The answer felt, in my raw and wounded state, like a resounding no. And in that moment of shattered resolve, the silence around me felt like a confirmation of my deepest fears. The days stretched into a desolate expanse. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage, amplifying the echo of those cruel words. The silence from Debra, after my terse cancellation and unanswered text, was a heavier burden than her pursuit. It confirmed my fears, twisting the knife of doubt deeper into my wounded pride. I had pushed her away, and now, the chasm between us felt impossibly wide. But in that painful void, something shifted. The initial sting of hurt and confusion began to recede, replaced by a slow, gnawing emptiness. The constant playback of those overheard remarks started to sound hollow, detached. Were they true? Or were they just the venom of gossip, seizing on my deepest insecurities? The Amy who had fallen for Debra, the Amy who had felt that electric kiss, that profound connection, began to stir, refusing to be silenced by external voices. The truth, stark and undeniable, was that I longed for her. Not just for her touch, or her captivating presence, but for the quiet understanding we'd found in that cafe, for the way she looked at me as if she saw something nobody else did. The ache in my chest wasn't just about a potential fling. It was about the loss of a nascent, beautiful connection that had transformed me. The bending process, initially so bewildering, had solidified into an undeniable truth. My desire for Debra was real, and it had opened my eyes to a part of myself I hadn't known existed. The past fears, the societal anxieties, they were still there, but they felt like shadows now, less potent than the bright, burning flame of my longing. I couldn't live with this unresolved ache. My resolve hardened. I had to see her, to hear her, to understand. Not just for her, but for myself. I needed to confront the truth, whatever it might be, and lay my own fears bare. I found her, not in a bustling club or cafe, but in a hidden gem I'd once told her about, a small, almost secret park bench overlooking a quiet section of the river, bathed in the soft, late afternoon light. She was sitting there, a book open on her lap, but her gaze was fixed on the water, a thoughtful, almost melancholic expression on her face. My heart clenched. I approached slowly, my footsteps muffled by the soft grass. She looked up, her eyes widening slightly in surprise, then softening with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. "Amy," she murmured, the sound of my name a balm to my aching soul. I sat beside her, the space between us charged with unspoken words. "I'm so sorry," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "For leaving, for not calling, for—" I trailed off, searching for the right words. For letting other people's words get inside my head. For letting my own fears twist what we have. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be vulnerable, to lay bare the shame and confusion that had consumed me. "I heard things about you, and I let them make me doubt everything. Doubt us. Doubt myself." My voice grew stronger, imbued with a newfound clarity. "But the truth is, being away from you, it just made me realize how much I want you.
How much you mean to me.
How much this, US, means to me." My gaze met hers, raw and pleading. I was scared. Scared of what this means, scared of how I feel, scared of being hurt. But I'm more scared of losing you. Debra listened, her expression unreadable at first, then softening, a gentle understanding dawning in her eyes. When I finished, she reached out, her hand gently covering mine, just as she had in the cafe. "Amy," she said, her voice soft, "I was hurt. Not just by your silence, but because I thought I'd misread you. Thought I'd pushed too hard." She paused, her thumb tracing small circles on the back of my hand. "Those things you heard? I won't pretend my past is spotless. I've had my share of fleeting connections. I built walls, Amy. Strong ones. It was easier than letting anyone in, really in." A faint, melancholic smile touched her lips. "But with you, it's different. From the moment I saw you, quiet and observant, something shifted. You broke through my walls without even trying. You challenged me, just by being yourself." She met my gaze, her eyes glistening slightly. "I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant to. And I never, ever saw you as just another conquest. You are everything but." She squeezed my hand gently. "I was afraid you'd never come back." In that shared vulnerability, a profound sense of healing washed over us. We talked for hours, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. We cleared the air, each confession laying another brick in the foundation of trust we were building. She explained the nuances of her past, the context behind the gossip, and I, in turn, articulated the depth of my own insecurities and the fear of judgment that had held me captive. It wasn't just about love, it was about acceptance. Acceptance of each other's pasts, of each other's flaws, and most importantly, acceptance of our true selves. In that quiet park, nestled between the city's pulse and the river's steady flow, we found not just reconciliation, but a profound understanding that solidified our bond, making it stronger than any fleeting whisper or lingering doubt. The love we shared, I realized, was not just about passion, but about finding solace, healing, and courage in each other's arms. The reconciliation in the park was not just a conversation, it was a detonation, obliterating the last vestiges of my doubt and fear. It unleashed a raw, undeniable passion that had been simmering beneath the surface, restrained by my insecurities and her guarded past. The cautious steps from before, the hesitant glances, were gone, replaced by a confident, almost desperate embrace of our connection. We didn't go back to the club. We went to her apartment, a space I'd only glimpsed before, now bathed in the soft, intimate glow of lamplight. The air was different here, quiet, imbued with a sense of anticipation that made my breath catch in my throat. The sophisticated scent of her perfume mingled with a more personal, subtle aroma that was uniquely hers, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. We moved slowly, deliberately, as if in a dream. Her fingers found mine, intertwining, a silent promise. Her eyes, deep and expressive, never left mine, communicating a desire that mirrored my own. We shed our clothes with a languid grace, each button, each zipper, a gentle unveiling, a shedding of the layers we'd worn for the world. Her skin, even in the dim light, seemed to glow, inviting my touch. Her touch on my bare arms sent shivers down my spine, a delicious frisson that ignited every nerve ending. We were no longer just Amy and Debra. We were two souls recognizing each other, finally free to explore the landscape of our intertwined desires. There was no rush, no urgency beyond the profound need to connect, to erase the distance that had kept us apart. The following days and weeks were a soft, blissful blur. We began to build a life together outside the pulsing heart of the club scene. We found quiet cafes where we shared knowing glances over steaming mugs, explored sun-drenched art exhibits, our hands subtly intertwining as we discussed the brushstrokes. We reveled in lazy mornings, tangled in sheets, the scent of her skin imprinted on mine, the world outside waiting patiently for us to emerge. We still frequented the clubs, but now it felt different. The bass still vibrated, the lights still danced, but it was no longer a place of escape for me, or a hunting ground for her. It was a celebration of our shared history, a vibrant backdrop to our love story, rather than a solitary search or a place of longing. We'd catch each other's eyes across the crowded floor, a shared smile passing between us, a silent acknowledgement of the journey we'd taken to reach this place. I often found myself reflecting on how Debra had shattered my preconceived notions, how her love had opened up a world of emotion and self-discovery I never knew existed. She had not just bent me, she had reshaped me, revealing a strength and a capacity for love I hadn't known I possessed. I embraced my identity, my desires, and my future with a fierce, unwavering joy. The club, once a sanctuary of anonymity, had become the unlikely crucible where I had found my truest self and the woman who held my heart, utterly and completely. The initial intensity, the dizzying rush of new love, gracefully settled into a profound, comfortable rhythm. Months unfurled, marked not by dramatic events, but by the quiet, steady hum of shared lives. My apartment, once a solitary refuge, now felt incomplete without Debra's presence. Her clothes mingled with mine in the closet, her toothbrush sat beside mine on the sink, small domestic details that spoke volumes about the intertwining of our worlds. I often found myself reflecting on the journey. The Amy who had once hidden in the shadows of nightclubs, a quiet observer of life, felt like a distant memory. Debra's influence had been subtle, yet transformative. She hadn't forced me out of my shell, but rather created a space where I felt safe enough to emerge. I was more open now, more confident in my own voice, more willing to embrace life's unexpected turns. My past traumas, the quiet anxieties that had often gnawed at me, weren't erased, but they were softened, their sharp edges dulled by the steady, unwavering presence of Debra's love. She was my anchor and my compass. Our differences, once a source of hesitant fascination, now complemented each other perfectly. Debra's outgoing nature, her innate ability to command a room, gently nudged me to step outside my comfort zone, to experience the world more fully. And in turn, my thoughtful demeanor, my quiet moments of reflection, offered her a grounding presence, a calm port in the storm of her vibrant, often chaotic life. We balanced each other, two halves making a whole, each enhancing the other's strengths. One recent evening, we found ourselves back at that club, the one where we first met, where that untamed kiss had rewritten my universe. The bass still thrummed, the lights still painted the air in shifting hues, the crowd still pulsed with raw energy. But it all felt profoundly different. It was no longer a place of longing or escape for me. It was a backdrop, a vibrant, nostalgic setting for a story that had begun there. Debra caught my eye across the dance floor, her smile soft and knowing. She didn't have to pull me onto the floor now. I walked towards her, a lightness in my step I hadn't possessed a year ago. We danced, our bodies moving in familiar sync, but there was a new depth to it, a quiet confidence in our shared space. Her hand found mine, and this time, the touch was not just electric, but deeply comforting, a promise of forever. Later, As we stood near the bar, the music a gentle thrum around us, I leaned my head on her shoulder. "Remember that first night?" I murmured, the words barely audible above the din. "I thought you were going to be just another beautiful face in the crowd." Debra chuckled softly, her arm tightening around my waist. "And I thought you were the most intriguing mystery I'd ever seen, too afraid to be solved." She kissed the top of my head, a warm, reassuring gesture. "Good thing we were both wrong about a few things, huh?" I smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached my eyes. It wasn't just about being bent or finding forbidden love. It was about discovering a resilience I didn't know I possessed, a capacity for vulnerability that had unlocked a profound intimacy. It was about facing fears, healing old wounds, and learning to trust, not just her, but myself. Our story was a testament to the unexpected paths love could take, a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the most unlikely of places, born from a quiet observer and a confident siren, under the velvet echoes of a city night. I looked at Debra, her profile illuminated by a fleeting blue light, and knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that I was home. And that, in itself, was the most beautiful transformation of all. The seasons continued their rotation, painting the city in different hues, but the core of our world, Debra and mine, remained steadfast. Our love, forged in the flickering lights of a nightclub and tempered by vulnerability and shared truths, had become the unwavering constant in my ever-evolving life. Amy, the silent observer, had found my voice, my courage, and my truest self in the most unexpected of places and in the arms of the most captivating woman. Life, as it always does, continued to present its challenges. There were still moments of doubt, tiny skirmishes with old insecurities, and the occasional societal whispers that lingered at the edges of our unconventional happiness. But now, I faced them differently. With Debra by my side, I felt an unshakable strength, a quiet resilience I hadn't known I possessed. Our love wasn't a shield against the world, but a powerful lens through which I viewed it, seeing not just the obstacles, but the endless possibilities. We carved out our own traditions, a blend of her spontaneity and my newfound appreciation for thoughtful quietude. Weekends were a mix of boisterous brunches with friends she'd introduced me to, and serene evenings at home, nestled on the couch with books, or simply sharing the comfortable silence that spoke volumes of our deep connection. We still frequented the clubs sometimes, not out of habit or longing, but out of a shared sense of nostalgia and a quiet celebration of where our story began. Each visit was a tangible reminder of the transformation, a living testament to the serendipity that had brought us together. The music, once an escape, was now a joyful soundtrack to our shared life. I often found myself in quiet moments, reflecting on the profound shift within me. Debra hadn't just bent my affections. She had reshaped my entire perception of love, identity, and self-acceptance. The once unspoken yearnings had found their name, their form, and their magnificent fulfillment. The journey from a guarded observer to a woman deeply in love was a testament to the power of connection, to the courage it took to embrace the unfamiliar, and to the undeniable truth that the heart, when truly open, knows no predetermined paths. One crisp autumn evening, as we walked hand in hand through a park, fallen leaves crunching underfoot, Debra squeezed my hand. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I smiled, leaning my head on her shoulder as we continued our stroll. "Just thinking," I mused, "how much I've changed. How much you've changed me." She chuckled softly, drawing me closer. "And you, my quiet one. You taught me that the deepest connections are often found not in the loudest rooms, but in the softest whispers." I looked up at her, her face silhouetted against the amber glow of the setting sun. Her eyes, those captivating pools that had first drawn me in across a crowded room, now held a warmth, a tenderness, that was solely for me. The girl who had sought anonymity in the shadows was gone, replaced by a woman who reveled in the bright, beautiful light of her truth, hand in hand with the woman who had helped her find it. Our love story, born of unexpected attraction and deepened by shared vulnerabilities, was not just a chapter in my life. It was the entire book, forever etched with the velvet echoes of desire, healing, and an unchained, boundless love. And as the cool evening air kissed my face, I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning of our endless horizon.